So welcome everybody to this webinar today on how to present yourself with impact. I'm Deborah O'Sullivan, MD at Ten2Two, and I'll be your host. And I'm delighted to be joined by Paul Ryan, who's an executive coach, seasoned speaker, and an actor. You may well know him when you see him. So for those of you who don't know, Ten2Two are a recruitment agency, and we specialize in part-time and flexible recruitment for professionals. So if you've got any resourcing requirements, then do get in touch whenever. We're always here. So the format for today is we're going to have half an hour of Paul presenting. There's a question and answer at the bottom of your screens. So if you've got any questions, pop them in there, and I'll either interrupt Paul as we go through, or we'll save them for the end. We've got 10 minutes at the end for question and answers. So there'll be a small handout that will follow after the event. So you don't need to scribble copious notes, but by all means you can if you want. So without further ado, I am going to hand over to Paul Ryan. Welcome, Paul.
Hello, nice to see you all, and thank you very much indeed for coming along. Yes, well, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to share a slide with you. So if you'll excuse me, I'm just going to share my screen with you to make this big comment that all the world's a stage. That was Shakespeare who said that. Shakespeare once said all the world is a stage, but nowadays he'd be better off saying all the world's a TV studio. Now, why is that? Well, we all know, don't we? Let me just sort that out. Hang on. Hello, me again. We all know that basically everything's changed. Since the global pandemic, we've spent a lot more time online in meetings in the video conferencing space. So today, we're going to look at things and ways in which we can improve what we're already doing. And this goes into two very separate and very distinct headings. We're going to look at setting the scene, and then we're also going to look at empowering your presence online. The more observant of you will have noticed at the bottom of that last slide, it said, but do we really need to know any of this? Well, I think we do. I've been working for the last 3 years, since the beginning of the pandemic, online. And normally what I do is I help people in real life give presentations in a real world environment. And of course, with COVID, all of that changed overnight. Apart from anything, I lost about 6 months' work in an instant, and I was terrified like so many other people. But like many others, of course, I had to pivot. And somebody across the road said to me, "Oh, you're going to do all right, aren't you?" And I went, "What do you mean?" He said, this was, by the way, across the road. We weren't too close. He said, "Well, all these people that are going to need training on how to speak really well online." And I said, honestly, it's the same. Little did I know just how different it was, because I started working on a one-to-one basis with people, and very quickly it became clear that there was a lot of really simple, effective things we could do to help people's online image, which are some of the things I'm going to be sharing with you today. It's fascinating that before the pandemic, video conferencing was really a business innovation that was largely ignored. People didn't use it. They were doing conference calls on the phone, etc., etc. And some of my clients are big into tech, fintech companies particularly. And one of the CEOs said, looking back, it was ludicrous in a way that there was this incredible technology there and we weren't using it because it felt a bit Mickey Mouse. Well, boy, oh boy, did that all change. When the pandemic struck, I don't know if you know any of these figures, it's fascinating, but Zoom, I looked up the figures on Zoom. Basically, Zoom had something like 10 million active users, and 5 months later, it had 300 million active users. Teams doubled. It doubled practically overnight. So we were suddenly hopping online because we were really in need of a method to communicate effectively and clearly, to keep business coming in, to keep communications open. And boy, oh boy, was it effective. And it's here to stay, whether we like it or not. I don't know how much time you spend on video conferencing calls every day, but I bet it's about 50%. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to bring myself up to, if you'll excuse me, speaker view. Do you know what, Debs, could you possibly knock yourself off? Because I can see you nodding away very, very helpfully, and it's slightly distracting for me, if you don't mind, if you possibly can. And by the way, if you've got any questions, do fire them over to Deborah and she will call them out for you. Yes, so isn't that an incredible enlargement of figures? I looked up today where we are. Where are we now? There are annually 3.3 trillion meeting minutes going out only over Zoom per year. So that's billions of live stream seconds every day. It's incredible. And right back at the beginning of the pandemic, we were on a very steep and rather uncomfortable learning curve, weren't we? Based on nothing for most of us really, other than goodwill and guesswork. Well, now I think it's time to really have a look at how we can, if you haven't already, how can we improve our online image? How can we make ourselves stand out from the millions of people who are having streamed meetings every day on the video conferencing platform? Well, we're going to have a look, firstly, at some of the mistakes people are making right now, today, as we speak. I've run courses from my streaming studio here, like I said, for the last couple of years, and it never fails to surprise me when I've got 8 students up on my screen, just how little thought, I hate to have to say it, how little thought they've put into their online image. So let's have a quick look, folks. I'm going to share my screen with you one more time now. Actually, I'll do it a number of times during the session, but what I'd like to do is I'd like us to consider, I know you guys can all see that, the 4 people that I've got in front of me. And look, everybody, I'm using a lovely little laser pointer to bring a bit of life to my slides, which is something else we can all do, by the way, bring life to slides in all sorts of different ways. Now, what I would like you to do is consider this gentleman here. What's good about his online image and what's not so good? I'm going to give you a moment to think about that, while I tell you that actually it's fascinating that all of these images that you're seeing, I took on my phone from a TV show called Newsnight. I'm sure you've all heard of it. We're UK based. Sometimes I have to consider an international audience. But yeah, we all know Newsnight. It's on BBC Two. And these photographs were taken about 3 months into the pandemic. And it's fascinating to think that all the people on screen here are broadcasting to the nation from their own home. And there are certain things they could have done to have improved their image. But listen, have a quick think. Obviously, we're not calling out today, so I'm going to go through what I think is good and not so good. Now, this gentleman here is actually a member of the House of Lords, hugely intelligent man and fantastic brain. But I have to say, there's no evidence that he's got a brain because he's cut his head off, right? First things first, we simply cannot see the top of his head. Often what you'll see is people, if you look at the little image of me, they'll be streaming and you can't actually see their chin. It's really important that we make sure everyone can see our full face, all right? What about his background? Now, I think that's a pretty chaotic, unthought out background. And we'll look at that in a little while. Okay, he's well dressed. He's properly presented in that way. Where's he looking? Where's he looking? He certainly isn't looking at the camera. So that's a big stumbling block to being able to connect with your audience. All right. I think that's pretty much it. Somebody said, oh, he's quite smudged. He's quite smudged, which confused me for a while. They said, why? And the only thing I could think of is that the cameras on our desktops and our laptops are actually pretty good. It struck me that what he might have done is lifted up the lid of his laptop after having had fish and chips, and he's got grease all over his camera. So a very simple tip is make sure that you've wiped the camera on your laptop or desktop before you start streaming, because if people can't see you, it's very, very difficult for them to want to stay with you. Now, we're going to move over to this lady here. There's some really good things going on and some things that aren't helping her. The one major positive is that she's definitely looking at the camera, which is a huge bonus. Now, she's working from home. I think the light is pretty good. It could be bettered if she had some natural light coming toward her, but let's face it, this is live streaming at 10:30 at night. I'd have put a little light in front of my face so that I don't have downlight, so that they can see my eyes looking at the camera. This lady is undermining her ability to communicate with her body language, because all we're seeing is her head. Okay, there's a lot of her head going on here. We'll go through ways in which I think we can improve that in a little while. And there's another thing, which is that her background could so easily have been better organized if she just jiggled her laptop to the left. Then she'd have been properly framed by that doorway, and we wouldn't have seen, with all due respect, her light switch off in the corner. It's just an unbalanced image. Right, this gentleman here, there's lots going on that I really like. He's got a nice plain background. He's properly dressed, as it were, properly dressed for the particular meeting in mind. And the difficulties here are he's not looking at the camera. This guy is streaming. Whatever it is he's saying to the whole nation, you know, and he's not connecting to the camera. Also, he isn't centered. He's slightly off to the left of his screen, and he's hunched. You can see that because of the buckled nature of his shoulders. We'll look at all of this. And of course, this lady here is doing something really brilliant. She is looking at the camera, and she has got fantastic natural light at her facility, but she's put that natural light behind her, so she's thrown herself into silhouette. Now, like I said, it's very difficult for people, it's very difficult for people to be able to engage with you. They can't see your face. It's a real problem. So she could have made that a lot easier for herself had she made a different decision about her lighting. Now, I'm just going to come out of screen share. I'm having a slight difficulty today because I'm using, there we go. Yes, for some reason, using the laser pointer is slightly making it a difficult maneuver coming in and out of my slides. So I hope you bear with me on that. Okay, so now we're going to do our setting the scene, okay? And there's a number of fundamentals here that I want you to consider, bearing in mind all that we've seen with those 4 slides, okay? First things first, I want to show you another example of how the majority of calls on video conferencing look. How often have you seen people like this? Like that? Yeah, look, I've got no top of my head. Yeah, like this. Okay, this is very, very common. We have to think in terms of our relationship to the camera so that people can see our body language. Now, I never lean. This is a big learning point here. When you're involved in a video conference call, don't lean on anything. Try not to lean on your desk, because it makes you too big on the screen, but it also makes you slouch, which isn't going to help you think. A lot of your meetings are going to be really, really important. Well, they're all going to have a level of importance, but you want to be able to think clearly. And when we slouch, well, let me just show you what happens when we slouch. This is my operation here. I've got nothing to lean on here, or have I? Well, that's a matter of fact, yes, I could lean on my armrests. Let's see what happens if I lean on my armrest. Okay, so I've got a pretty good online image. Now, look what happens when I lean. I'm diminished in the screen, but also look what happens to my posture, right? Leaning, bang, I am now slouching. That's meaning that when we slouch, we actually compress the lower third of our lungs. And the lower third of our lungs holds 2/3 of our lung capacity. So we're not helping ourselves breathe effectively and therefore think effectively. I'll just cut back to my other camera. I'm about 3 foot, 4 foot, forgive the, what's that, 1 meter something from the lens of my camera, okay? Now that's really important. And it's important because what it gives me is the ability to communicate through my body language. So we're talking about from the midriff upwards, 4 feet from the camera, if you don't mind me going in imperial. This means that when I gesticulate, when I use my body language, you, as the viewer, can see it. It's a really weird thought, this, but we have to learn how to become TV presenters, really, when we're on this, when we're in the video conferencing space. So we have to make sure that people can see more of us and not just our head, okay? 55% body language. If you go along with the Morabian rule, I know he doesn't like presentation skills coaches using it, but I actually think it makes a lot of sense. 55% body language. And if we are just focusing on our head, we're losing the ability to support what we're saying with the visual stimulus of our body language. So that is what 4 feet from the camera is going to give you. Okay. Now, the other thing, which you can't quite see here, is that my camera is roughly at eye level. Okay. How often, I can't show you here because my camera, I'm using a separate camera actually. But how often have you had nostril cam where you can see the ceiling of somebody's room and up their nose? We don't need this. We don't want it. We don't like it. And furthermore, you don't have to subject people to that. The other thing about an upward angle is it's quite frightening. It's a bit like entering a sort of Kafkaesque nightmare, really. We want to try and avoid this. We want our viewer to be pleased by the image. Now, you don't have to spend any money, by the way, to achieve all of this. I know that I'm working from my studio, right? This is my business. I've got a number of cameras. I've got loads of lights. You don't need any of it. We're all being asked to work. I mean, obviously, if you're in the workspace, there's different choices you need to make, but often we'll be streaming from home. And you don't need to spend anything to enhance your online image. You just got to make a few decisions that will improve it. And one of the things you can do is get a box to put your laptop on, okay? If you pop your laptop on a box, you are then more likely to have your camera at eye level, okay? And that just means you're better centered in the middle of the screen. Here's another thing as I look, and actually this is really brilliant. Deborah, you're doing a brilliant example of this. I don't have too much headroom, do you see, on my video image. Look what happens when I've got too much headroom. Again, I'm diminished. Again, I'm diminished. Yes? If you just have a small amount of headroom above your head, look at the newsreaders, yeah, on TV. They don't have a lot of room above their heads. This is the sort of power zone, okay? And if you're in the middle, I've got a light back there, hang on. If you're in the middle of the screen, suddenly you're actually too small, all right? So what have we got so far? We've got 3 or 4 foot from your camera, camera at eye level, not too much headroom, background. Now, I've got a plain background. I quite like it. It doesn't matter, essentially, what your background is as long as it's organized, you know? So if you've got a door in your background, close the door. If you've got stuff hanging on the back of the door, move it somewhere else, okay? I'm a real fan, I have to say, of the blurred background. Now, I'm not sure what video platforms you're using, but certainly on Zoom, and I think in Teams as well, you can blur your background. And I actually think it works really, really well. If you have got a plain background and you want to give yourself a sort of TV studio feel, here's a tip that I picked up from a very good friend. Get a light and just put it on the wall behind you, and that gives you a slightly TV feel. Now, I know that today, what's that? There it is. I've got a slight light issue here today, everybody, because there's a lot of light coming in from one of my thingamajigs. So I'm going to try and get rid of that for you, because it really does matter. You know, our video imaging does matter. I go out of my way to make sure I look good on screen so that my message, there's nothing going to get in the way of my message. Recently, I had to stream from a Premier Inn, and it was very, very difficult to get a properly balanced camera angle so that everything was working well. In the end, what I did, I lifted up my mattress, threw it behind the camera, and I used the bedstead as a beautifully centered backdrop. I got beautiful light on me, and it was all gorgeous. Right, okay, so suddenly I don't have a light distraction there. All right, so I think that's it, isn't it? We've got 3 foot from the camera, or 4 foot. No leaning, please. No leaning on armrests. Okay, put your camera, your laptop, sorry, on a box so that you've got it at eye level. Not too much headroom, okay? These are very simple things, but it all makes a difference. It means that when you're online and people are seeing you, they're seeing a really good image as opposed to an unthought out image. And the more thought you put into it, the better your visual image is going to be. Tell you what, even though I'm still having a few difficulties because I've decided to use my, look at that lovely little, that laser light is great, except to be honest with you, it's stopping me from being able to go in and out of slides. But not to worry. Look, here we go. Here's a list for you. Engagement online, setting the scene, camera at eye level. Sit 1 meter from the camera and allow yourself to be seen from the mid-torso upwards. Put yourself in the center of the frame without too much room above your head. Use natural light if possible, and have that obviously streaming toward your face, okay? Not toward the back of your head or you'll be silhouetted. If you do need a bit more light on your face, just get a light and stick it in front of your face, or spend a few quid on a nice little ring light. They're not expensive. Organize your background, declutter. For my money, the plainer the background, the better, but any background works. And like I said, I'm a big fan of using blurred backgrounds. I think they really, really do work well. Just trying to get out of screen share again. Okay, here we are back again. Now, there are other things that we can do to enhance our online image. And let me just share with you what they are. I wish I hadn't come out of screen share. Now, by the way, did you notice I am coming out of my slides a lot? When people give presentations online, here's something to watch out for. It's called sitting in your slides. In real life, we would call this death by PowerPoint, where someone's got their slides up and they're reading them and all you can see is the back of their heads. Online, if you start a presentation in your slides, try and come out of them so that people aren't just looking at a small thumbnail of you communicating your message, okay? It's really important that you know the most important tool that you've got to communicate your message is not your slides, it's you. So I'm jumping in and out of my slides a lot today by way of actually showing you what I mean. And there we go, rewriting body language, by way of example, should I say. We're going to rewrite our body language, okay? And we're going to start with something called ready, steady, go. Now, why are we going to bother rewriting our body language? Well, let me just tell you something. It really matters how you sit. Yeah? Okay. People don't consider their image. And what you do, you will feel there's a relatively new science called embodied cognition, all right? And what it basically states is that the state of the human body determines the state of the human mind, okay? So what you do, you will feel. And I'm going to absolutely race through this because I can see already we've only got about 8 minutes left. I'm going to move my other camera for you folks, if you don't mind. Hello. Right, at home, try and do this if you can. Here's a quick question. What do you want to achieve with your video conference? Presumably, you're going to want to use the time to its best. You're going to want to engage with the person who's on the other side. And ultimately, you want it to be productive, so energized. Here's the thing. How do we make ourselves feel energized and confident in the moment? I'd like you to do a little favor for me. I'd like you to sit in your chair with the bottom at the back of the chair. When I clap my hands, I just want you to slouch, okay? Slouch. And I want you to notice, or if you've got armrests, lean on your armrests, but notice what happens to your energy. Okay, I've already shown you on screen what happens if you slouch. Your stature goes absolutely out the window. You're diminished on screen and you lose a lot of status. Well, I'm going to show you a very simple technique called ready, steady, go. Okay, and it's so simple you'll want your money back. All right, here's what I want you to do. I want you to sit with your bottom in the back of the chair. I'll just move that light a bit. Bottom in the back, sorry, I want you teetering on the front of the chair, literally teetering on the front of your chair. I want you to put one foot slightly in front of the other, like you're about to get up and run a race. I want you to sit upright. And it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. What's the big deal? Why should I bother? Let me just show you. I'm going to move from bad practice to better practice, which is ready, steady, go. Sitting on the front of my chair, nice and upright. Yes, simple as that. Do I look better? Yes, I do. I'm going to simply slouch a bit. Can you see how I'm diminished on the screen? Absolutely. So it's as simple as that. Now, I'm going to actually empower myself even more on screen by using my chickens. What do I mean by chickens? Forgive that. I mean this, simply this. Take the palms of your hands and rest them on your thighs. so that you've got room for a small chicken under here and a small chicken under there. It sounds crazy, it sounds stupid, but actually it's very effective, and it's something of my own invention. Let's just see the difference, shall we? So I'll just get me a little light, make sure that's lovely. Good. Again, we're going to go from bad practice to good. In fact, let's make it really bad practice. Yeah. How many times do you see a Zoom like this? Somebody on a Zoom like this? 4 foot, camera at eye level, not too much headroom. Ready, steady, go. I'm nice and upright. Now watch this. Watch this. Chickens. Bang. Look how empowered I am. Look at Deborah. My goodness me. This is fantastic. It just means that you're filling more of the screen and you're more empowered on the screen, okay? It's such a simple trick, and it's not going to stop you gesticulating. It's only a starting position, all right? And it doesn't stop you from using your hands to underpin what you're saying. Remember, the more people can see of you, the less suspicious they'll be of you, all right? Now, lastly, let me just check the time here. Goodness me, I can't believe it. Lastly, the rewrite, the body language rewrite. So we've had ready, steady, go. Okay. In fact, there's 2 things. There's 2 things. I want you to imagine, take a pen. If you've got a pen, I want you to put the pen between your teeth, right? Nobody's watching. And you, Deborah, you don't have to do it. You're too glamorous for this sort of work. But look, here you go. You do that, right? I'm going to count from 10 down to 1 backwards. I'm going to leave the pen in the same position. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What am I doing? I'm smiling. I'm smiling. Business is serious, but it very rarely has to be po-faced, okay? Often when people get nervous, look, loads of people find it really nerve-wracking being in an online conversation, being part of a meeting online, giving a presentation online, but don't signal it. What you do, you will feel. If you fake a smile, your endocrine system is going to go bang, have some endorphins, because it doesn't know it's fake. And actually, here's something for you. I'm going to put everything in place, and I'm going to put the smile in place as well. Then I'm going to take one element away and see if it makes a difference. All right, bad practice. Good practice. Chickens, beautiful, gentle smile. Now watch me. It's not the same, is it? Suddenly, I'm quite funereal and a bit scary. Most of the time, what you're going to be doing in your businesses, I imagine, is sharing news to help others, or providing solutions. So it's all good news. There'll be times when it ain't good news. That probably won't be part of an online business meeting. But the point is, start with a smile, because it will communicate through the airwaves, or what do you call it, the wires. And it will help people to know that you are happy to be there. Yes, that you are cool, that you are okay, that you are ready to go. And you're ready to communicate. Yes. We follow the leader as human beings. Yes. And if you start your video conference call sitting well, yes, smiling at the camera, the person responding to you is going to follow your lead and they'll smile back. There's one other key element, and I'm doing it now, and I'm not doing it now. Okay. And it's something that people find very, very difficult to do. And that is looking at the camera. Bang. When I look at the camera, this above everything is probably the most powerful technique, and it's simple, but people find it very, very uncomfortable, which is looking at the camera. Okay, now why don't we like looking at the camera? Well, A, it feels odd, but B, we want to see the people who are on our screen, because we want to try and pick up the body language signals they're telling us that our message is landing well. But that's good for real life. Online, I think you're not going to get anywhere near as much of that body language confirmation, because you'll have 8 or 9 people doing that. You might even have some people with their screens turned off. That's another story. Okay, but the point is, if you really want to engage, if you really want to ensure that your message is going to land really well, here's the rule. Look at the camera when you're doing the talking. Look at the speaker, yes, when you're doing the listening. All right. And it's not an absolute rule, but it's a really helpful one. I hope that you've appreciated that during my time with you today, I've been looking at you. I haven't been looking at you down there. I've been looking at you right there. And this is what I mean about we have to learn to be TV presenters. When you put all this stuff in place, you're going to be really empowered online. If you're using notes, people say, well, I've got to use notes. Perfectly happy, use your notes. It's one of the luxuries we've got actually of having meetings online is we can use our notes. But watch, it doesn't mean to say that you have to use your notes like this. I have seen this, by the way, people using a different screen and you spend the whole time looking at their ear roll. I've seen this. What we can do is use notes in this manner. I'd like you to imagine that I'm organizing a school trip and my notes are there. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the North Church PTA meeting. Now, we're here to talk about the school trip going over to the zoo. There's a number of things I want to talk to you about. First thing is departure time, 9:30 prompt. Where are we doing this? Directly, it's not outside the school, it's in fact in front of the church. Now, can you see what I'm doing there? I'm using my notes, but I'm going straight back to the camera. Put all this stuff together and you're going to really empower yourself online during any video call. So I believe, I can't believe it actually. I say I believe, I can't believe it. We've done half an hour. So have we got any questions, Deborah? Has anything come in that we can talk about?
Yes, thank you, Paul. Wow, that was a whistle-stop tour, but brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm sitting here holding my chickens.
Oh, you look fabulous.
So yes, first question I've had in is any tips for glasses wearers?
Oh yeah, well actually I'm utilizing my glasses wearing tip right now. I don't know if you can see that, but can you see my glasses are actually tipped forward? They're not sitting on my ears. I've got them tipped forward. Of course, what happens if we're not careful, we'll get all the reflect. There we go. That's really, really bad. Let's get my reflection really bad. Yeah, I can't do it now. Hang on. There we go. There we go. So that is what I've seen often. And actually, I've seen people streaming online to conferences. And there's a brilliant CIA interrogator, fantastic bloke, body language expert. But he was, he sort of spoiled his hour because he spent the whole time looking into, you just couldn't see his eyes and you could see his computer screen reflected back at us. It's very uncomfortable. So how do we do it? We just literally tip our glasses forward there so that you don't get that reflection and you can still actually see what you're doing. Well, I hope that's helpful. It's a pretty straightforward tip. Anything else?
So I'm sometimes in meetings at work and having our camera on is optional. Any advice? Camera
on is optional. I mean, you know, when I run courses, and it's very different because I'm not running meetings, I'm running courses, but I always insist, I start the meeting by saying, you know, let's have your cameras on. And actually for me, because I like my training to be like an open conversation, you know, cameras on, microphones on, but it might be that you want to put in, you know, cameras on, microphones off, unless you want to raise a question. It's very difficult for the person who's got their camera switched off to properly engage, because let's be honest about it, it's much easier to switch off and do another email. I would say engage fully with the people that you're holding the meeting with, show respect to the chair by literally showing them your face. You know, it's going to help them know whether what they're talking about is engaging with you.
Sure, that's helpful, thank you. Any tips for running training sessions, for example, on a CRM system or a technology platform, i.e. where you need to use dual screens?
Do you know what? You've absolutely blown my mind with the jargon there. When you need to use dual screens, I'm so sorry.
So I guess it's somebody asking if they're perhaps doing a demonstration of a system to somebody, so they have to use two screens. So they're, I guess it's what you're doing.
Sure, if you have to use those two screens, if one of those screens is on you, you know, there's nothing wrong with saying, so I'm going to move, you know, take that over there. I hope you can see that. And what we're achieving here is literally just when you're returning to the camera that's showing you, look at it. There's also the other thing of put that, if you have to use two screens, then that's what you do. Is there any way of dragging that onto the screen that you're working from? Because you can do that and then you've got the camera right there and it's all right in front of you. There's probably a better answer out there. I wish I could have provided you with a little bit more of a steer on that one.
Okay.
What do you got next?
I've got, are you just using the laptop's built-in camera and mic, or do you use separate and better quality devices?
Right, great question. Like I said, obviously here, because this is the center of my business and I it's really important that I'm able to move from one camera to another to show different aspects, to be able to use chalk and talk. By the way, I haven't done that yet. Hello. Yeah, so that I can use chalk and talk. I'll just put chalk, hello, there, and talk. Don't know why I'm doing that actually, but the point is I'm closer now, so you can see that I've got a microphone. I've got a lovely microphone just there. And the reason why I have a microphone is so that I can move from my chair to the chalk and talk board, or going over to the standing area where I'm delivering body language stuff. It does give me a better sound quality. There's no two ways about that. People who are listening to me over headphones might notice it's a really nice sound quality. I'm not using, I'll share this with you. Hang on a moment. I'm going to show you, I actually use GoPros. Hello, Deborah, look, you're on the telly. I use GoPros. So that's the camera that I'm using. These are really good things. They're not expensive. I got those secondhand. And again, you're just getting a better quality of image. Look, let me just put everyone at ease around this. You don't need another camera particularly, because the camera you've got on your laptop is going to be good enough. Of course, if you want to enhance your image, then get a really nice camera and plug it in, and you'll get the benefit of that. But I think one of the elements that, Deborah, you and I were talking about is that we don't want to encourage people to run around spending loads and loads of money where there's no need. I do it specifically because of what I teach and train. And that's my answer. You can do it and you will get benefit from it, but it's not strictly necessary.
Sure. I've got someone here, tongue in cheek, saying, how do you sit on the edge of your chair for a 2-hour meeting?
It's easy. It's easy. Well, actually, that's a really good question. When I'm delivering, I will sit in ready, steady, go, perched on the edge of my seat. When I'm then going into a receiving mode, I will then take myself away from the perching edge of my seat and I'll sit more comfortably. All of this stuff, it's worth saying, it's a brilliant question in a way. This stuff is your default, everybody. Yes, the ready, steady, go, the chickens, the perching on the front of the chair. That's your default. That's where you start and that's where you move away from. Yes, during meetings, certainly. Once you've struck rapport, it might be that you do lean, that you do take your energy to a different place. But when you're delivering or when you've got a point to make, I would then always go into the ready, steady, go perch. You don't have to sit right on the very edge. I'm asking you to do that to make sure we're getting it absolutely right. If you sit halfway through, it's okay, but it doesn't give you that sense of coming at you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Maybe time for one more question. Are there any specific colours or clothes you should wear when doing an important meeting?
Brilliant question. Just make sure you don't dissolve into the background. Obviously, you'll know the importance, the people that you're talking to. You'll know whether you want to go business casual or business smart. You can always spend a few quid. I didn't, but some do, on going to people like Colour Me Beautiful. So your colour schemes are great. But the really important point is make sure that you're standing, that your colours are making you stand out from your background. I think I did this once and I was wearing a grey shirt behind what was a grey background. And it wasn't the best question to ask because I wasn't really exempling what I should have done. So I made sure today that I wore a lovely blue shirt so that I stood out from my background.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Paul. Well, I hope that's been really, really helpful for everybody. We'll end it there. As I mentioned earlier, there is a little handout that we will send out to everybody who's attended, and there will be a recording of this, which we'll also send out the link to. It normally takes about 24 hours, but we'll get that to you as soon as we can. So all that's left to say is thank you very much, Paul. That's brilliant. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
And thank you, everybody, for attending. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.